So 5 minutes on leadership, well, that's a fairly daunting. Like an hour would be a hell of a lot easier than 5 minutes. So I'm going to have to focus on one big theme. But I think this big theme that I want to focus on this evening is the one that's closest to my heart. And that is the great leaders connect emotionally with their people. We now know with the emerging research in neuroscience that things like emotions are key to everything that we do. Even decision-making, which we would think of as a logical process based on KPIs and data. An impaired brain, where the emotional centers that govern regulation are impaired, cannot make decisions. So we know we are emotional beings. So our emotions are a key to our leadership. They're a key to everything that we do every day. So a leader that doesn't engage emotionally with their people or their team is not leading to be great. You can be effective by leading with your intellectual capacity, but to be really great, you need to lead with your emotional and your intellectual capacity. And on the Munster theme, I'm going to unashamedly use Paul O'Connell tonight, just as a reference point, because I think he is the outstanding leader, the outstanding leader of our time, certainly in world rugby. Paul O'Connell is somebody who leads both emotionally, but also intellectually. What some refer to as strategically and intimately. So this is just an excerpt from the Irish Independent. It's an excerpt from something that Alan Quinlan wrote, and I'll just read it out to you. You can imagine the scene. I'm sitting in a change room with doubts in my head. I know I'm a good player. I know I have the talents, but we are minutes away from walking out onto a packed Thomond Park, and I can't get rid of this feeling of anxiety. Is there anything that can make me feel better? This can. Paul O'Connell stands up, asks us to come together, and before you know it, we are all on our feet, gathered in a huddle, all of us, arms around each other, knowing what's coming next. Paul speaks. We listen. He commanded the room. The man who spoke to us cared. That's such a huge part of Paul O'Connell's greatness. He took the time to get to know you as a person. He didn't walk away from you at the dressing room door. He stayed with you. That night I had to go to a Galway hospital with a dislocated elbow back in 2010. Paul was my first visitor. The day I suffered from self-doubt, he was there beside you. He'd challenge you. He wouldn't be afraid to have a cut off you. But when he did, he'd do it in a way that somehow gave you belief. Now, there's a couple of key words there. One is caring, and the other one is challenge. So how does he do that? How has somebody like Paul O'Connell, and how do great leaders develop that balance between challenging you, telling you that you're not realizing all of your potential, but also doing it from a place where the person has the belief in your ability that you really do care? It's by getting that balance right. In management education, we tend to focus on the intellectual, onto how to read balance sheets, strategy. It's all very IQ focused. We don't spend even 50% of our time talking about emotional engagement. We're emotional beings, and it's a real deficit in our leadership education. We focus on strategic interactions, bigger picture issues, which are all extremely important, critical to the achievement of business goals, but it's all about thinking, action, interactions directed towards these goals, and it's all very relevant as well. But intimate interactions focus on getting to know ourselves and each other just for the sake of it. So in other words, it's sincere. It's from a perspective that interpersonal connectedness, both with self and others, is an end in its own right. So it's not done in a Machiavellian way. I want to create a connection here so that I can steer this person to there. It's done with a sincere interest in the other person. That's what Paul O'Connell did. That's who Paul O'Connell is. There's a sincere, caring interest as a leader, but also, boy, could he challenge you. And in the heat of a rugby match, Frankie's given me permission to say things like bollocks tonight, so I can say things like bollocks, but there is no time to consider people's feelings. You have to be very abrupt when somebody's not stepping up to the mark. But Paul O'Connell and all good leaders give themselves permission to do that because they have laid a real foundation of intimate interactions, and therefore they can be abrupt. So strategic interactions, you can see it's very much like the first statement. It's purely caring about results, cognitive intelligence, the intentional use of hierarchy, using your power to get things done. And there are certain settings when you need to do that. People, your staff, your teams need to know where their power lies, and it will use it if you need to. Being considered, careful, guarded, not letting your guard down. There are times in your career when you need to do that. There are conversations and interactions when you need to do that. But intimate interactions are different. And great leaders don't let those opportunities, those daily moments, those daily opportunities pass. Walking past somebody in a corridor, stopping to have lunch with somebody, asking about them, how they are, how they're doing, dropping your guard, caring about the person, using your EQ, not just your IQ. Asking about thinking and feelings, absence of power relationships, what do you think? Coming out from behind your desk and really showing that you're getting down to their level and having an intimate interaction where there is no hierarchy. So great leaders move seamlessly between strategic and intimate interactions. A strategic interaction, very, very clear. This is about as intimate as it gets. I searched for an intimate interaction between Paulie and a Leinster player, but I just couldn't find one. And what I love about this one, you can see Conor Murray waiting in the background for his hug. But that to me, it's a metaphor and it's funny, but it's absolutely great in terms of leadership. Paul O'Connell is a great metaphor for me around having that balance between strategic and intimate leadership. And we're missing out on so much if we don't use all the emotional capacity in our brain to make those relationships better and to get more out of people, to help them to realize their potential. Thank you.